eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, listen up, although they knew God, they did not glorify Him as God, nor were they thankful, but became futile in their thoughts. See, folks, Romans chapter 1 talks about what happens to the brain, to the mind, to the rewiring of the synapses, and to the spiritual situation of a person who knows that God exists, but they don't want to thank Him, they don't want to recognize Him, they don't want to honor Him. And it says that although they knew God, they didn't glorify Him as God, nor were they thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. That's what our government has done. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and they changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man and birds and four-footed animals and creepy things. Therefore, what happened? Therefore, God gave them up to their uncleanness and the lusts of their heart, to dishonor their bodies among them, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to their vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for that which is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one for another, men with men, committing that which is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was meet, or which was due. Folks, not only is that the reason why homosexuality is so rampant, because people they denied God, they were unwilling to thank Him, but it's also the state people have become, and they profess themselves to be wise and have the solutions. But the God of the world has said, you know what? You want to live without me that long? You want to defy me that long? I'm going to make your brain not even work properly. And I fear that's the point we're getting to right now. Does the government really care? Is this really about preventing deaths? Let's talk about that for a minute. They say that all of this, the economy is being shut down. Let's talk about that for a minute. You know, restaurants are being shut down. You know, what about all these waiters and waitresses who have done nothing wrong, now have no income? They went from everything going fine in the world to zero income, not because they did anything wrong, not because there's anything wrong with their restaurant, but because just the government said, we don't want a lot of people together. You don't have that authority, government. You don't have the authority to shut down these things. We'll talk about that in a minute. But is this really about saving lives? Is the government really serious about saving lives? Let's take a look at some things. Let's see here. In 2018, 770 million AIDS-related deaths happened in the world. 700. Let's talk about this. Coronavirus, give or take, whatever the statistic is, 9,000, 10,000 at the time of this when I'm speaking to you, 8, 9, 10,000 people have died, mostly elderly that were already ill from something else. Not making light of that. Not making light of someone dying. No one wants that. But is this really about the government protecting people from dying? In 2018, 770 million AIDS-related deaths occurred in the world. What does the government do about that? What does the American government do about the issue of AIDS, which primarily is still a homosexual disease? Do they say, hey, here's some advice, just like they say, hey, don't get together at church in big groups. Don't go to restaurants and sit down in big groups. Does the government tell people, hey, 770 million people in the world died from AIDS in 2018. Maybe you men shouldn't be having anal sex with each other. Maybe that would help. That's what they should be saying if they actually cared about saving lives. Oh no, but what does the government do? Here in America, I believe in 2012, they legalized gay marriage. They celebrate gay marriage. They celebrate homosexuality. You come to I don't want you to go to a gay pride event, but if you do, you will see we preach at them, preach against them. And every gay pride event I've ever gone to, I see police departments in the parade. I see fire trucks in the fire department in the parade. I see government officials and mayors and people running for office in the gay pride parade. That tells me that the government doesn't give a darn about deaths. They don't care about whether or not people are dying. They're promoting homosexuality, men with men, working that which is unseemly. The government is promoting men sleeping with men, leading to AIDS, causing 770 million people to die per year, and they promote it. They celebrate it. They dedicate a month to it. They don't tell people, don't have anal sex, it's going to destroy your health and might kill you. No, they promote it. Don't give me this garbage that the government cares a whit about people dying or not. They care about control. They care about control, and they care about votes. And right now, they've determined that they can get more votes promoting homosexuality than they can standing against it. And here's another thing. Every day in America, on average, over 3,000 babies are murdered at abortion clinics. You want to talk about a pandemic? That's just America. That's not even the world. I don't even have the world number here. Let's see here. I don't have the world number here. I just have America. Because all I can do is tell America, let's wake up. But if America and the government actually cared about deaths, actually was doing their best to stop deaths here in America, then Roe v. Wade should have never happened in 1973. And every year since then, the government says, hey, that's the law of the land. That's the law of the land. In 1973, this wicked nation said it was okay to chop up babies in their mother's womb. And now it's even worse. They're not just flushing them down a drain or burning them in an incinerator. They've made a profit off it. They're making huge profits off of selling baby parts. Planned Parenthood sells baby parts for huge profits, and the government says, that's fine. 3,000 babies every single day, on average, in America die from abortion. Don't give me any garbage that the government actually cares. They're destroying the world economy as we speak, and if they wanted to save lives, they could do it by shutting down Planned Parenthood and by overturning Roe v. Wade. That might be one good thing that comes out of this. You know, it's been said that if this pandemic, if coronavirus shuts down the Planned Parenthood clinics, if coronavirus shuts down the Planned Parenthood clinics, that will actually save more lives than the pandemic will actually save more lives than it takes. So that would be nice one. That would be one good outcome. That would be one amazing outcome. If the government really cares about lives, the maximum amount of people living, then shut down Planned Parenthood. Let coronavirus shut down Planned Parenthood and all the abortion clinics, and it will save more lives.
Shelter in place?
No, that's unconstitutional. Come and join me. Come and join me. We're starting the next. His question was, do we have to shelter in place? It's unconstitutional. They don't have that right. Come and join me. We're starting the next great Boston Tea Party. We need to have the spirit of the Boston Tea Party back here in America. You know, if the American spirit that I see today, and it really depresses me to see the people are just rolling over and letting the government tell them to shut down and to go hide in your closet and caress your toilet paper till we tell you it's okay to come out. That is nonsense, and it's unconstitutional. And what I want to do, I want to see happen, and I pray to God that it happens. I'd like my children and grandchildren to not be alive when the Antichrist comes. Call me selfish. Hey, if I have to deal with it, so be it. You know, I'm ready, and I'm getting my kids ready. I don't have grandkids yet, but call me selfish, but I'd like my kids and grandkids to get through their life before the Antichrist comes and before the government takes over. And seeing what I'm seeing now, it kind of depresses me, because I see a lot of people rolling over and playing dead and hiding in their closets and caressing toilet paper rolls instead of standing up and saying, okay, enough is enough. That was my point at the beginning of this preach. We've got to tell the government, enough is enough. We thank you for your efforts, but you're destroying hundreds of millions of lives and businesses with this overreach of power that you have. Because again, worldwide, nearly 1.25 million people die in road crashes each year. That's 3,200 deaths a day. Over 3,200 people die each day in car crashes. But we don't allow the government. That's a risk you take, folks. That's a risk you take. We'll get back to that in a minute. But that's why I'm calling for the next great American Boston Tea Party. Because if the American spirit that I see today was back then, they would have said, you know what, let's not cause waves. The environmentalists would say, no, don't dump tea into the harbor. That's pollution. And all the wimpy people in the 13 colonies would have said, no, you know what, taxation without representation, that's not so bad. Maybe it's for our own good. No, we need the spirit that the colonials had in the days of the Boston Tea Party. Folks, if this American spirit we have now existed in the late 30s, early 40s, we'd all be speaking German now, because people would say, you know what, we think Hitler's too strong, he's too powerful, maybe he's got a good plan. Hey, he did create the Autobahn, and people would say, let's just hunker down, let's just hide in our closets and caress our toilet paper, and they would say, let's just let Hitler do what he wants to do, and maybe in a couple of months we'll come out like the groundhog poking his head out of the hole, see what happens, and hopefully he'll just go away. No, we need an American spirit. We need the second American Boston Tea Party to happen. All right, so where are we here? So California is under lockdown. Let's see here. The Spanish government used the coronavirus to take over the private healthcare sector. What these governments couldn't do decade after decade after decade of trying to nationalize healthcare and have this one-payer system and government-controlled healthcare. They couldn't do it through the ballot box. They couldn't do it through Senates and Congresses. They just did it with the stroke of a pen because there's a crisis. Just like they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. This is scary, folks. New York City's Mayor de Blasio said that this is a case for the nationalization, literally a nationalization of crucial factories and industries that could produce the medical supplies to prepare this country for what we need. Folks, this is in a matter of just a couple of days. Just within a couple of days of the coronavirus really kind of hitting America, we already had the mayor of New York City calling for the nationalization, meaning the government complete control and takeover of private industries that they felt they needed to control. This is nonsense. You got guys like Joe Biden who can't even remember what state he's in. Joe Biden once told a guy who was crippled in a wheelchair, hey, stand up, Chuck, we want to see you, we want to say hi. The guy told a crippled man in a wheelchair to stand up, and you want them in control of our businesses and our health and everything from cradle to grave? I don't think so. So we've gone over the death statistics. What else do we have here? Lots of stuff, lots to talk about. Praise God, God is in control. Okay, blood drives were canceled, and now they're low on blood. Imagine that. The hospitals are desperately low on blood. Why? Because the coronavirus panic came out, and they canceled all the blood drives. They canceled all the blood drives out of fear of people getting together, and now imagine this, the hospitals are extremely low on blood. France requires a note from the government to go outside. You want to walk your poodle in France? Want to take Fifi, your poodle, for a walk in France? You need a note from the government. There are your papers. There are your papers. Just like Nazi Germany and France, you need, just like trying to go to use the restroom in second grade and getting a hall pass in France, you can't take your poodle for a walk outside without a government paper telling you can do it. This is frightening, folks. The cure is worse than the disease. That's the point we have reached, allowing the governments to take over. The cure is worse than the disease. Washington, D.C. forces restaurants to close under the threats, and those standoffs are likely to increase as the government flexes their regulatory muscle to force temporary closures and social distancing to combat the global pandemic. But experts say it's a losing fight for the businesses to try and stay open if the government tells them they have to close, and one that could cost them dearly. Let's see here. It says here that the government, that might include fines and forced closure and even jail time. The government has now said that you are subject to jail time. You can be subject, and I read in California, you can actually be subject to, if you go outside without the authority of the government in the entire state of California, you can have a $1,000 fine or up to 6 months of jail time. 6 months of jail time for taking a walk outside. That's in California. That's not North Korea, folks. We've allowed, this is worse. I'll bet you Kim Jong-un is looking at some of the restrictions that our government has placed on us and thinking, man, that's fierce. Man, I didn't have the courage to do that. Kim Jong-un, or whatever the North Korean guy's name is, he's probably thinking, wow, they are really locking down. They are really taking away freedoms over there in California, and it's coming to a state near you as well. But, so California's in lockdown. 40 million people in California, they're in lockdown in the entire state. But then you scroll down, I scrolled down a couple of spots on that website, and then they had another story about how prisoners are being released to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. They're telling perfectly legal, healthy people that they're in lockdown, and then they're releasing prisoners. And this is the government that you think is logical enough to take control of this situation? I don't think so. I don't think so one bit. But, the contracts clause of the Constitution prohibits the states from interfering with lawful contracts such as leases and employment agreements. And the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment prohibits the states from interfering with life, liberty, or property without a trial at which the state must prove fault. Folks, they can't just come in and tell a restaurant that hasn't done anything wrong. These are not restaurants that are serving, maggot-infested pig meat. No, these are restaurants that have done nothing wrong, and the Contracts Clause of the United States, the Constitution, does not allow them to come in and simply shut their business down. Now, if they're saying, hey, the military's coming through, we need you to feed them, whatever, that's fine, and but they have to be compensated for it. But to shut it down, it's illegal. We need people to rise up, because folks, my fear, I want people to rise up. I want people to rise up and say, well, they're still in their right mind. I want the Americans, while they're still in their right mind and thinking rationally and aren't bankrupt yet, it's tight, but maybe they're not bankrupt yet, they're still making their mortgage or rent payment, it hasn't reached the point of panic. I want Americans to rise up now at this point and say, okay, government, that's it. We can't do this. We can't do this right now anymore. We're destroying a global economy and ruining hundreds of millions of lives for the sake of you saying you don't want people too close to each other. No, folks, we've got to do it now, because if it happens once people are bankrupt and starving and out of toilet paper and having to wipe their rear ends with like an old SpongeBob SquarePants t-shirt in the garage, once it reaches the point where people have nothing left and are starving and out of their mind, that's when it's chaos, folks. That's when it's people stabbing each other in the parking lot over a roll of Charmin. We can't have the people finally get fed up with the government once they're bankrupt and starving to death. That's when it gets really, really ugly. We can't get to that point, folks. But it reaches a point. I've got hay fever. I've got hay fever right now. I have it every year, and all the trees are budding and everything. and you so much as sneeze from hay fever, and everybody looks at you like you're Typhoid Mary. I made up kind of a bad joke, kind of a silly dad joke. I made up a joke that just about this issue, that I'm sitting there and I'm eating from a can of mixed nuts, and somebody next to me said, "Hey, what you got there, an almond?" And I said, "Cashew." And so some government official thought I sneezed and put me into quarantine. See, this is the point. You like that one? This is the point. It's a bad dad joke. I made that up. It's a bad dad joke. I got somebody over here smiling about it. Thank you. Want to hear it again? Did you hear it all? All right. See, I'm joking around about how I'm telling that the government has overplayed their hand on this whole coronavirus thing. I'm wanting people to join the first and foremost, to come to Jesus Christ, so that their heart is clean and their heart is right with God. But my dad joke is, I was eating from a can of mixed nuts the other day, and somebody said, "Hey, what you got there in your hand, an almond?" I said, "Cashew." And some government official thought I sneezed and put me in quarantine. See, that's the point. That's the point of overreach. Isn't it corny? I know it's corny, but thank you for laughing. I appreciate that. Join the revolution, guys. I know you haven't been around that long. I'm old. I'm 53. Nothing like this has ever happened in my 53 years of life. 9/11. After 9/11, it was not this bad. After September 11, 2001, I was actually on a plane. I was actually on a plane in the air on my way to Chicago when all of the planes were actually hitting the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And I would have gladly gotten back on a plane right then and there to get back home. I got stuck in Chicago till I got a ride home. And justifiably, America was frightened. We'd never seen anything like that. And the air travel was shut down for a short time. But very shortly, people got on with their life. Even after September 11, 2001, which is something America had never seen before. That was crazy weird, and we'd never seen that before. Still, life got pretty much back to normal real quick, much quicker than this thing is. They're talking about this going on for months and months. The economy can't take that. But guys, let me tell you something else. How old were you in 2001? Were you alive? One? You were one? Okay. You don't remember it too much, I'm sure. But let me tell you something. That first Sunday after the September 11th attacks, the churches were filled. The churches were filled. People were afraid, and they wanted God, and they wanted God in their life. And the churches were filled this first Sunday after September 11th. But do you know what the churches looked like a couple months later? On Sunday, a couple months later, they were pretty much about empty. They were pretty much right back to normal. All those people in the middle of some crisis came to God, but then they went away. Then they scattered away. Jesus talked about just that thing. Folks, are you too saved? Do you know Jesus Christ? Let me give you something. Let me give you something, my friends. Give you a couple things. Here's, hold on. Give one each to your friend. One's a harsh gospel tract, and the other one tells you how to be saved, tells you everything about Jesus Christ. But people weren't in the churches a couple weeks later. But let's see, what was I talking about? But people aren't crying out to God for mercy. Now, is everybody telling you to clean your hands, wash your hands? That's good advice. That's good advice to wash your hands. You know what the Bible says? It says, "Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep, and let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourself in the sight of God, and He will lift you up." That's what you got to do, because this is, in my lifetime, I'm not the oldest guy around, but I've been around over half a century, and nothing like this has ever happened. There has never been a worldwide shutdown that I've seen. I wasn't around in 1929 when the Great Depression hit. Maybe that was somewhat similar. But look, folks, young guys, this is not normal. Don't let the government take over control of everybody's life. We've got to get back to normal, because there's coming a day when Jesus Christ is going to return. Is your heart right with God? Is your heart right with God today? You got to get your heart right with God today, folks. And I'm not talking about coronavirus. You can get hit by a bus. To heck with coronavirus. You can get hit by a bus. I had some statistics here earlier. Do you know that hippopotamus kill 2,900 people worldwide each year? hippopotamus. But do you see the government shutting down out of fear of hippo attacks? No. Let's put things into perspective. Every day we get up and get out of bed and get into a car, we take risks. We take risks that we're willing to accept. We could die in a car accident, but we still drive cars because we know we have to get somewhere. And even at a young age like you, 19, you're 19, even at 19, your heart could stop beating this very day. This very day, March 20th, 2020, could be the second date on your tombstone, or some drunk driver or somebody texting and driving takes your life. So I implore you on Christ's behalf. I implore you, and I tell you, get your heart right with God today, because you don't know when you're going to take your last. And to heck with what's going on in a hospital or coronavirus, get your heart right with God, so that actually you can serve. I'm getting old. I'm getting too old to do this. I look back at some old videos and I'm like, man, I've gotten old and gray, and I look terrible now compared to when I was first doing this. We need the young generation to start up. Do you have a question? No? Okay, you look like you were going to say something. You have a question, you just say it. Because I'm here preaching the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I'm also calling for people to rise up and have the second great Boston Tea Party and tell the government enough is enough of this. My daughter's job is ending next week. My daughter's job, their business, is closing their doors, not just for the coronavirus, for good. This thing has destroyed, this thing has killed my daughter's, the place my daughter works at. This place has already made them decide we can't do this. We can't stay in business this way. As of next week, my daughter will be out of a job. Did she do anything wrong? Did that business do anything wrong? No. The government overplayed their hand and created a worldwide panic and a worldwide economic disaster, and it's destroying people's lives. Her boyfriend's job is in jeopardy, and they're closing down a plant that, except for like the people that are just working on a few specific machines. My wife's part-time job is ending because her boss is closing her business for good. After all these years of struggling and making it, it's a place that sells cowboy boots and other leather products. It's being destroyed. It's not even having to do with health or anything else. But they've created a situation where they're destroying the world economy, and more people are going to end up dying from stress and bankruptcy and malnutrition than are dying of coronavirus. So let's see here. What else are we talking about? Told the cashew joke. But like I said, every time we drive, we take a risk that we could die. But we determine that risk is worthwhile. We don't let the government tell us we can only drive around in golf carts that are wrapped in Nerf, that are wrapped in big Nerf products, and a governor on the engine that only keeps it to 10 miles per hour. No, we accept certain risks. When we use a vending machine, you didn't hear my statistic earlier, 37 people die from getting food products out of a vending machine. 37 people. I'm trying to put a coronavirus in perspective. You could die. You could die from a vending machine falling on you just as easily as you could die of coronavirus. Falling coconuts cause about 150 deaths per year. Do we tell the government to cut down every palm tree because 150 people die a year from falling coconuts? No, I don't think so. When you stand underneath a coconut tree or palm tree, you take a risk that you could die. That's a risk that we're willing to take. Let's see here. Let's talk about deaths from flu. In 2018, Fortune magazine reported 4,000 U.S. deaths per week during the flu season. Folks, that was 2018. Where was the panic? Where was the massive panic? 4,000 U.S. deaths per week during the flu season in 2018. And the World Health Organization has said just in 2018, their statistic was somewhere between 250 to 500,000 flu deaths worldwide in 2018. But we didn't have this panic. We didn't have this governmental shutdown. But let's go to Matthew 24. Young men, I appreciate you hanging out here. I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 14. You guys own Bibles? You guys read your Bible ever? You ever read the Bible? No? Sometimes? No? Never? I appreciate your honesty. I like that. I like honest people. Not real happy about people that don't read their Bible, but I do appreciate the honesty. All right, so let's go to Matthew 24. Let's go to Matthew 24. And let me just let you know, this is not taken from today's headlines. This is not actually a printout of today's headlines. This is Jesus speaking 2,000 years ago. Let's go to Matthew 24. All right, Matthew 24. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Jesus sat upon the Mount of Olives, and his disciples came unto him and said privately, "Tell us, when shall these things be?" Meaning the end of time, like the end of time, the destruction of the temple and all that. They said, "Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world?" So they're saying, "Okay, Jesus, we know you're telling us that the end of the world is going to come at some point when your second coming is." They said, how are we going to know?" And Jesus answered them, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences." Pestilences are what, like, COVID-19 is. Pestilences are diseases and things like that, medical problems. There shall be, let's see here, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. And all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because the iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that endureth unto the end shall be saved. So basically he's saying, listen, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars and diseases and earthquakes and all these things. That's when you need to kind of wake up and say, okay, maybe the end is coming pretty close. But we don't know. Even if the end of the age isn't going to be for another 1,000 years or more, your end is going to come. You know, maybe you'll live to be 95 years old. Maybe, like I said, maybe you die this week from a drunk driver or somebody texting and driving. You could have a heart attack. Some gangbanger, pops a cap into you or something. Crazy stuff happens. You die. People your age, they die every day. You never see it coming. You don't even see it coming. So you got to get your heart right with God. And that's what he's saying. He's saying that only the ones that endure to the end shall be saved. See, that's why it breaks my heart seeing how Americans in the world are reacting, overreacting and panicking and hunkering down to this, to this pandemic, to this so-called pandemic, when really there's a flu. Tens of thousands of people die from the flu every single year. They don't have the right to destroy entire world economies over this issue. This is very scary, very frightening thing, something I've never seen in my life. So I want you, young men, to come to the Lord Jesus Christ before it's too late. Is there anything that would stop you from becoming a Christian, from getting saved today? Is there anything? Do you believe you're a Christian now? Have you committed your life to Jesus Christ today? I mean, ever in the past? Now, what would stop you? What would be something, if somebody said, "Why aren't you a Christian?" What would your answer be? And I'm not trying to be mean or anything. Let me talk to this guy, okay? What would your answer be if someone said, why aren't you a Christian today? And I'll take an honest answer. What? You don't know? You don't know? What's your belief? What do you think happens when we die? What do you think happens when we die? Speak up, I can't hear you. What?